let's talk. I mean, let's talk about because the amount of stories that have come out about Donald Trump's law breaking, and we don't. I got to be honest with you, we don't even cover them anymore. We don't. You can't keep up. We can't keep up because we're just not trying to. You know, I think for the most part, you know, the people who listen to this program, watch this program on YouTube, listen to it as a podcast, listen to it live, support the show, buy our super beta male vitality mix.
A biggie buy.
I think that it's very hard for me to believe that most of those, that there's really any undecided voters out there. The ones who are going to vote for Jill Stein or Gary Johnson or, I don't know, the Reform Party candidate or whoever else it is they're going to vote for are going to vote for those people. And they understand that Donald Trump is who he is. But in like a place like CNN, there seems to be a disproportionate desire to chase Clinton stories that there's nothing there. I mean, beyond the broad swath of like, this is what happens with billionaires. But you could do these same stories with Trump too. He was one of these players even. But they don't. And here is Kristen Powers and Margaret Hoover. She's like a conservative. And Kristen Powers, frankly, as far as I could tell, she was the one who was on Fox, too. She's like a sort of a Fox News Democrat type of person. Talking about the double standard that applies to Clinton as opposed to Trump. I mean, if Trump was judged on Clinton standards, they wouldn't even be able to run. It would be just like completely. Let's check this out.
Paternalistic.
Is that right? So that's equally offensive that I actually expect better behavior from women. You see that as equally disadvantageous.
Why would you expect women to behave better? I mean,
because I think they're smarter. I think that they have a better ability to think through an apparent hostility. You know, whereas men may think that if you frame up on another guy and show that maybe you could take him behind the high school or whatever the heck Vice President Biden said that's okay.
But Chris, I think that, I'm sorry, and I'll let Margaret get in here, but I think that's because women have had to learn how to deal with sexism. And so I don't think it's fair to expect them to have to constantly be reaching this bar where Hillary Clinton has to be so good at standing there with this guy who is attacking her and doing things that if a woman did, we'd call her a psychopath, basically. And yet she's able to stand there.
People call Trump that also.
You know, well, but half the country is, you know, or at least, you know, 40+% of the country.
But now you make a different point. Now you make an interesting point that I'll bring to you, Margaret. There are people who say, well, conversely or obversely from what we just heard from Kirsten, if Hillary Clinton were running against any other Republican who was worth their salt, she'd be getting crushed. And that her being a woman is a huge advantage for the Democrats because she is a first. And that there is a scrutiny that she would not be able to survive if she was running against anybody but Trump, that he is a favor to her.
There is a scrutiny on Hillary Clinton, certainly. There's a scrutiny on her because she's a first. There's also scrutiny because she's been in public life for 25 years and because there do continue to be scandals around her and the behavior and the choices that she's made. But Kirsten's right. And by the way, your response to her, this notion that there should be a different standard for women than there is for men.
I'm not saying there should be. I'm saying she asked me what would happen if for a woman. And I'm saying in my head, in my very decidedly male, alpha male head, I don't see that as as a plausible scenario because I wouldn't expect women to act like a bad man. That's just where my head is, and maybe that's equally.
And there you go, America. Welcome to the sexism that is implicit in this election.
But
that perfectly illustrates it. That's all. I mean, what else can I say? You made the point yourself. It is fundamentally unfair. And by the way,
I feel bad for men in this discussion because it's like if you say that you expect better behavior from women, you're holding them up to a better standard than a guy like Trump, and that somehow makes you bad.
So Chris, here's the thing. Like, I think it's Gloria Steinem.
Well, can we pause this? Like, I'll tell you the amazing thing that's going on here that just I'm just shocked by is that, like, there isn't a producer somewhere going, like, we got to cut the commercial. We got to cut the commercial. Chris, stop doing what you're doing. Chris, don't say anything more about that. Just say something like you've been taking cold medicine. I mean, the idea that Chris Cuomo is on national television saying that, well, you know, like, guys are guys. You don't expect much from them. But I hold women up. I put them up on a pedestal. It is pretty amazing. It is like...
Congratulations. You just played yourself.
Or maybe Chris Cuomo got up this morning and said, I want everybody to come into the office. We're going to have an editorial meeting. What I'm going to do today, it's going to be a bit of an experiment. This is a little bit risky, but I really do think that we need to provide an example of implicit bias. So I'm going to do a form function type of thing. It's going to be sort of part journalism, part performance piece. I'm going to take some hits from this, but as long as we're on the same page and we're doing this for society's better good. Is there any more audio to this? Let's just hear the rest of this.
I mean, what else can I say? You made the point yourself.
But
it is fundamentally unfair. And by the way,
I
the fact
feel
that we're
bad
talking
for
about
men in this discussion
sex
because
scandals.
it's like if you say that you expect better behavior from women, you're holding them up to a better standard than a guy like Trump, and that somehow makes you
so
bad.
Chris, here's the thing. Like, I think it's Gloria Steinem who said, like, we will have equality when an average woman and an average man accelerate at the same rate.
Yeah, I
and
accept
that's
that.
the point. Like, you don't hold the woman to a higher standard. The woman should be held to the same standard, and the man should be held to the same standard. And in this case, I don't think the man is held to the same standard. Because, like I said, I really have racked my brain to imagine a woman behaving like him and getting a nomination of a major party. And it just...
Yeah, of course. It's impossible to imagine. It's impossible to imagine. I mean, I guess, although, to a certain extent, you could say Sarah Palin, but she was appointed and she was only around for 3 months. Hey, it's Sam Seder. Why don't you subscribe to this channel? You can do so right over here. Over. Subscribe.